So the most dangerous time in your dog's life isn't actually when they are, a puppy chewing on electrical cords and swallowing your socks.
Right, the puppy chaos phase.
Yeah, exactly. The real danger actually arrives when they hit about 2 years old, settle down, and just become perfectly, quietly well-behaved.
It's a tricky transition.
It really is. So welcome to today's deep dive. If you've got a dog, especially if you're out of the puppy woods and looking at an adult dog right now, this is for you.
Absolute.
We are pulling insights today from the Doberman Health Academy, really digging into the science of adult preventative care.
And it's fascinating stuff.
It is. And whether you have a Doberman, a rescue mix, or you just love the psychology of habit building, we are uncovering why the most unglamorous, boring, everyday habits are the ultimate secret to a long, healthy life.
The boring stuff saves lives.
Okay, let's unpack this. Why is a quiet, well-behaved adult dog actually in the danger zone?
Well, it really comes down to a false sense of security.
Hmm.
I mean, when a dog reaches adulthood and that chaotic training phase is finally over, you naturally just slip into autopilot.
Oh, for sure. You're just glad they aren't destroying the house anymore.
Exactly. The dog seems sorted. You assume the heavy lifting is completely behind you. But this is the exact moment your primary responsibility shifts from active training to something much quieter.
Which is what exactly?
Preserving their biological baseline. And honestly, the greatest threat to that baseline is your own familiarity with the animal.
Ah, the blindness of seeing them every single day.
Yes. You suffer from a phenomenon we could basically call baseline drift. You look at your dog every morning. Because the biological changes from yesterday to today are microscopic, your brain just constantly updates its image of what normal looks like.
I feel like it's the classic aunt or uncle syndrome.
Oh, how so?
Like you watch your own kid grow up and you don't notice a thing. They just look like themselves, right?
Right, day by day.
But then a relative visits for the holidays once a year, walks through the door, and is completely shocked by how tall the kid is or how much their face has changed.
That is a perfect analogy. We do the exact same thing with our pets. But instead of missing a growth spurt, we are missing the slow onset of disease.
Wow, that's a little terrifying.
It is. And if we scale that to the physiology of a dog year, a 12-month gap between veterinary visits is just a massive stretch of time.
Because their bodies are moving so much faster than ours.
Exactly. Entire disease processes can develop, progress, and reach a critical stage within that 12-month window. An owner will often say, my dog looks perfectly healthy, so I'm just going to skip the annual vet checkup this year.
I think we've all been guilty of that at some point.
Sure, but that mindset completely misinterprets the very definition of preventative medicine.
Because if you are waiting until the dog actually looks sick to your naked eye, you aren't really preventing anything anymore.
No, you're not. You are doing reactive damage control.
Right. You're already behind the 8-ball.
You are waiting for the internal systems to fail so spectacularly that the dog can no longer hide it. By the time a dog is visibly lethargic or refusing food, the underlying condition has usually been brewing for months.
Man. So the entire purpose of the annual veterinary exam is to pull objective data before those visible symptoms ever appear.
Precisely. A veterinarian isn't just looking at the dog with affection like we do. They're establishing hard, objective numbers.
Like getting an actual mathematical snapshot.
Yes. They palpate the lymph nodes. They listen to the heart valves for really subtle murmurs. And most importantly, they run routine blood work and organ function tests.
So let's talk about those internal systems, specifically the heart, because when you dig into the data from the Doberman Health Academy, one of the biggest red flags they track is dilated cardiomyopathy, or DCM.
Yes, DCM is a major focus there.
And what is terrifying about DCM is the mechanism behind it. Can you walk us through that?
Absolutely. So DCM is a condition where the heart muscle wall gradually becomes thin and weak. And because the muscle is weak, the heart really struggles to pump blood effectively. So to compensate for that weakness, the heart chambers actually enlarge, trying to hold more blood just to keep the circulation going.
Wait, so the engine is basically expanding and working 3 times as hard just to maintain the status quo.
That's exactly it. And that compensation mechanism is incredibly effective in the short term. The dog will look perfectly normal.
Really? No coughing or slowing down?
Not at first. They will play, run, and eat with total enthusiasm while their heart is fundamentally remodeling itself and just inching toward failure. You cannot see an enlarged heart from the outside.
This is why veterinary cardiologists hammer home the need for ongoing screenings.
It's all about the baseline.
Right, because if you have an objective baseline of your dog's cardiac markers and blood work at age 2 and you test them again at age 4, a slight elevation in certain enzymes or a change in the electrical rhythm of the heart stands out immediately.
Exactly. You catch the DCM before the dog ever coughs or faints.
You essentially buy yourself time.
You are buying yourself time to introduce medications that can support the heart muscle before that catastrophic failure happens,
But you only get that time if you are actively tracking the internal baseline.
which requires showing up for the exams.
Right. And speaking of internal baselines, here's where it gets really interesting.
Okay, we're going.
I want to challenge a piece of routine maintenance that feels totally disconnected from major organ health: dental care.
Oh, this is a big one.
Let's be real for a second. We are told to brush our dog's teeth daily. But doesn't that feel like, I don't know, modern pet industry overkill?
I hear that argument all the time.
I mean, wolves did not have toothbrushes out in the forest. I look at dog toothpaste and I think, is this just an upsell to fix bad breath? Is this actually a medical necessity, or are we just projecting human cosmetics onto an animal?
It is entirely a medical necessity, and comparing domestic dogs to wolves is a really common but honestly flawed metric.
Why is that flawed?
Well, wolves in the wild rarely live past 6 or 7 years, and they aren't eating processed kibble. We are trying to keep our domestic dogs thriving for 12, 14, sometimes 15 years.
Oh, that's a huge difference in lifespan.
It is. And over that extended lifespan, dental disease is not just a localized cosmetic issue in the mouth. It is a systemic, whole-body threat.
Walk me through the mechanics of that. Like, how does a dirty tooth actually threaten the whole body?
So think about the anatomy of the mouth. The gums are highly vascular. They are absolutely packed with blood vessels.
Okay, makes sense.
When plaque builds up on the teeth, it harbors massive amounts of bacteria.
Yeah.
This bacteria causes the gums to become inflamed and irritated, and that is gingivitis.
So the gum tissue is essentially compromised. It's weakened.
Yes. And because it's weakened, normal daily activities like chewing on a toy or just eating their kibble dinner create microscopic tears in that inflamed gum tissue.
Oh, no.
Yeah. That bacteria from the plaque is then pushed directly into the dog's bloodstream. This is a condition called bacteremia.
Wait, so every time the dog eats dinner, they are pumping mouth bacteria straight into their own circulatory system.
Constantly. And that bacteria doesn't just float around harmlessly. The immune system has to mount a low-grade, exhausting defense against it every single day.
That sounds draining.
It is. Worse, that circulating bacteria has a real affinity for settling on the inner linings of major organs. It literally colonizes the heart valves, causing endocarditis.
Wow.
And it aggressively damages the microfilters in the kidneys over time.
So we just spent all this time talking about protecting the dog's heart from genetic conditions like DCM. But if you ignore their teeth, you might literally be destroying their heart valves with completely preventable mouth bacteria.
Exactly. Which completely reframes the act of brushing their teeth, doesn't it?
It really does. It's not about minty breath at all.
You are not freshening their breath. You are manually disrupting the bacterial colonies before they can harden into plaque and enter the bloodstream. That daily mechanical disruption with a dog-appropriate toothpaste is the gold standard of preventive care.
But the experts also stress that daily brushing at home isn't enough on its own.
Right, it's not the whole picture.
They still require professional veterinary cleanings. If I'm in there scrubbing every single day, why do I still need the vet to put the dog under anesthesia to clean them?
It all comes down to the anatomy of the tooth. A toothbrush only cleans the crown, which is the visible part of the tooth above the gum line.
Okay.
But the most dangerous bacteria, the kind that causes serious bone loss and systemic infection, thrives in the subgingival space. That is the pocket deep below the gum line.
Ah, where the toothbrush literally cannot reach no matter how good you are.
Exactly. A professional cleaning allows the veterinarian to safely scale and clean out those deep pockets below the gum line. It catches the hidden disease that you cannot see and cannot reach long before the tooth root rots or the bacteria permanently damages an organ.
That is wild. And you know, if the underlying mechanism of dental care is that deep, it forces me to look at the outside of the dog completely differently too.
Well,
Specifically grooming. Because when you think about grooming a short-coated breed like a Doberman or a Boxer or a Pit Bull, it feels kind of ridiculous.
it's like a waste of time.
Right. Brushing a dog with a quarter-inch of hair feels like sweeping a perfectly clean floor just for the sake of looking busy.
Well, if you approach it as a purely cosmetic exercise, yes, it feels useless. But brushing a short-coated breed isn't about detangling hair. It is a deliberate, tactile diagnostic scan of the dog's topography.
I love that framing. It's like a pilot doing a pre-flight check on an airplane.
I like that.
You aren't out there styling the plane, you know. You are running your hands over the fuselage, looking for microfractures in the metal before the thing takes off.
That is a brilliant way to look at it.
Yeah.
You are mapping the terrain of your dog's body. If you run a brush and your hands over their ribs, their legs, and their neck
Yeah.
every single week, your brain memorizes what normal feels like.
You build a tactile baseline.
You do. And because you have that tactile baseline, a month from now, when a tiny pea-sized lump appears under the skin on their shoulder, your hand will catch it immediately.
Because it disrupts the pattern.
Exactly. You will feel a patch of dry, scaling skin or notice a subtle thinning of the coat long before it becomes a massive infected hotspot or an inoperable tumor.
And while you were running that pre-flight check, you check the ears too, right?
Yes, always check the ears.
Because breeds with cropped or upright ears still need quick visual and olfactory checks. A quick sniff for an unusual yeast odor or a glance for redness catches an ear infection before the dog is frantically scratching their head open.
It's all about catching the whisper before it becomes a scream. And that same diagnostic mindset applies directly to their feet. Nail care is consistently one of the most overlooked aspects of adult dog maintenance.
The golden rule mentioned in the research is so simple. It basically says if your dog's nails are clicking audibly on hard floors, they are too long.
A great rule of thumb.
But this goes so far beyond just protecting your hardwood floors from scratches. The mechanics of a dog's foot are fascinating here.
They really are. Dogs are digitigrades, meaning they bear their weight entirely on their toes, not their heels. Their nail beds are packed with proprioceptive nerves.
Proprioception, meaning the nerves that tell the brain where the body is in space, right?
Exactly. When a dog walks, the moment the bottom of their paw pad hits the ground, those nerves send a signal to the brain that the foot has landed securely.
Okay, that makes sense.
But if the nails are too long, the hard keratin of the nail strikes the floor before the paw pad does.
Oh, so the brain gets a premature signal.
The brain gets a false signal that the ground is higher than it actually is.
That sounds incredibly disorienting.
It is. And to compensate for this constant misfiring of information, the dog subconsciously shifts their posture backward. They flatten their feet and alter their entire skeletal alignment to relieve the pressure on those toes.
So they are essentially walking in poorly fitting, painful shoes, and their whole body mechanics change to deal with it.
And that altered gait puts immense, chronic strain on the joints in their legs, their hips, and their spine.
Which connects perfectly to a major condition mentioned in the Doberman data, wobbler syndrome.
Yes, wobbler is devastating.
Wobbler is a neurological disease where the spinal cord in the neck is compressed, and one of the very first signs of it is a strange, uncoordinated gait, usually in the hind legs.
Right.
If an owner is totally tuned out, running on autopilot, and lets the dog's nails grow into talons, the dog is going to start walking weirdly just to avoid the pain in their toes.
You introduce a massive variable that completely muddies the diagnostic waters.
Yeah.
If you bring that dog to the vet because they are stumbling, the vet has to waste time addressing the overgrown nails and the inflamed toe joints before they can even begin to evaluate if the dog has a devastating neurological condition like wobbler syndrome.
You basically blind yourself and your vet.
You do.
But if you maintain the baseline, keeping the nails short and tight, and the dog suddenly starts stumbling, you instantly know it's not a localized foot issue. You know it's neurological, and you can intervene immediately.
Maintaining the baseline clears the noise so the real signal can get through.
Okay, so we've scanned the exterior, we've done the pre-flight check on the skin, the ears, the feet. But let's shift to the invisible environmental threats.
The hidden stuff.
Yeah, because I am channeling a hypothetical owner right now who lives in a high-rise apartment or a suburban house with a concrete patio.
I know exactly where you're going with this.
They're thinking, my dog is an indoor dog. They sleep on my memory foam mattress 90% of the day. Paying for year-round tick, flea, and heartworm medication feels like the vet industry is just upselling me on a threat that doesn't exist for my lifestyle. Challenge my thinking on that.
What's fascinating here is how we project human architecture onto nature. We draw this hard psychological boundary between the safety of the indoors and the wild outdoors. But parasites do not respect your drywall.
Right. A mosquito doesn't care if you have a nicely decorated living room.
Not at all. Mosquitoes, which are the sole transmitters of heartworm disease, routinely come indoors. They come through open doors, window screens, and they certainly bite dogs when they go out for a quick 3-minute bathroom break.
And heartworm is no joke.
Heartworm is a brutal, often fatal disease where literal foot-long worms choke the dog's heart and lungs. A single mosquito bite transmits the microscopic larvae.
And what about fleas and ticks? If the dog isn't hiking in the deep woods, are they really at risk?
Absolutely. Flea eggs and larvae can be tracked into an apartment on your own shoes. Ticks climb tall grasses in manicured suburban parks and latch onto your dog during a casual neighborhood walk.
So even the local park is a minefield.
Yes, intestinal parasites like hookworms and roundworms are heavily concentrated in the soil of dog parks and communal grassy areas where dogs relieve themselves.
So the whole indoor-outdoor distinction is completely meaningless from a biological standpoint.
It is a dangerous myth. Those microexposures are all the routes that opportunistic parasites need. This is why parasite prevention is non-negotiable and must be tailored with your veterinarian based on your specific geographic region. It is a standing pillar of adult preventive care, not an optional summer accessory.
And that logic applies directly to vaccines, too. The immunity they get as puppies isn't an impenetrable lifelong force field.
No, it's not. Immune protection from vaccines naturally titers down or fades over time. Core vaccines need regular boosting. Furthermore, lifestyle vaccines must be evaluated constantly.
Give me an example of a lifestyle vaccine.
Well, if you move from a city to a wooded area, your dog's exposure to leptospirosis or Lyme disease skyrockets. The risks change as the environment changes, and the protection must adapt during that annual vet review.
So if we pull all of this together, the vet visits, the daily teeth brushing, the fuselage grooming, the parasite protocols, it seems the real goal is that the owner has to become the absolute master of their dog's definition of normal.
Knowing your specific dog's normal is the most powerful diagnostic tool in veterinary medicine, period.
How do we actively track that at home? Because the research gives some brilliant, really specific metrics to watch.
It starts with a simple physical baseline, the monthly body check. You take 30 seconds to run your hands firmly along their rib cage and look at their waistline from above.
Just to check their weight.
Yes. Doing this consistently catches gradual weight drift long before you'd notice a 2-pound gain visually.
Which is huge because 2 pounds on a dog is exponentially more stress on their joints than 2 pounds on a human.
Absolutely.
But the data also highlights looking for muscle thinning, which feels kind of counterintuitive. We're usually so obsessed with our dogs getting fat that we ignore them getting skinny.
Muscle thinning is a massive red flag. Subtle muscle wasting, particularly along the apaxial muscles, which run down either side of the spine or in the hindquarters, is often an early sign of a systemic issue.
Why does the body eat its own muscle?
It's a process called cachexia. When a dog is battling chronic kidney disease, severe joint pain, or hidden cancers, the body alters its metabolism and begins breaking down muscle tissue for energy.
That's terrifying.
It is. If you aren't doing those hands-on checks, you will miss that slow muscle loss until the dog's spine is literally protruding.
And we also need to track their exercise tolerance, right? If your dog has a consistent exercise routine, say a 2-mile loop every morning, that isn't just about burning off energy, it is a daily stress test.
Exactly. If your dog normally crushes that 2-mile walk, but over the course of a month you notice they are lagging behind, panting heavily halfway through, or just reluctant to finish the route, that reduced exercise tolerance is incredibly significant.
Because it indicates the engine is struggling. But again, you only know they are lagging if you establish the 2-mile baseline in the first place. If their walks are totally random, you just assume they are having a lazy day.
Right. And that misinterpretation extends to their behavior, too.
Oh, behavioral shifts.
Yes. A settled adult dog has a pretty predictable personality. If your highly social dog suddenly starts hiding in the bedroom, or your calm dog develops sudden, unexplained anxiety, pacing the floors at night, owners often write it off as a weird behavioral quirk.
Or they think the dog is just getting grumpy with age.
Exactly. Well, to build on that, dogs are masters at masking physical vulnerability.
Because of survival instincts.
Yes. A sudden behavioral shift in an adult dog is very often the only way they can express physical pain or neurological discomfort. You have to treat a sudden personality change as a physical symptom until proven otherwise.
So what does this all mean? We are talking about tracking body condition scores, muscle mass, exercise tolerance, subtle behavioral shifts, vaccine schedules, and heartworm medication dates. It is a massive amount of cognitive load.
It sounds overwhelming when you list it all out.
Right. So how does a normal owner organize this data without making it a full-time job?
By establishing an ironclad system for medical records. It sounds tedious, But accurate record keeping is the infrastructure that allows all this preventive care to actually function.
Because memory is flawed. If you rely on your brain to remember what your dog weighed 2 years ago, or exactly which month you gave the last tick pill, you are going to guess wrong.
You need a centralized health record, whether it's written or digital. It must contain their vaccination history, every piece of baseline blood work, cardiac Holter monitor results, a running weight log, and notes on their current medications.
The Doberman Health Academy specifically utilizes the Vital Pet app for this, which honestly sounds like a lifesaver for outsourcing that mental load.
Technology like the VitalPet app is invaluable because it automates the baseline. It pings you when a medication is due, it stores the lab results, and it graphs their weight. But the true power of having organized data reveals itself during an emergency.
Put me in that scenario. Why is it so critical?
Imagine it is 2 a.m. on a Sunday. You are traveling in a different state and your dog collapses. You rush into a 24-hour emergency clinic with a veterinarian who has never seen your dog before.
Total nightmare scenario.
The dog is unstable. The vet needs to know if the dog's current heart rate and blood values are acute anomalies or if there is a pre-existing condition.
And if you don't have records, you are standing in a chaotic lobby at 2 a.m. saying, I don't know, I think my regular vet ran blood work last year and said it was mostly fine.
Which forces the emergency vet to start from absolute zero, running redundant tests and guessing at the baseline while the clock is ticking.
Right.
But if you pull up an app or a folder and hand them a complete history of baseline blood work and cardiac screenings, you instantly eliminate the guesswork. They can compare the current crisis data directly against the healthy baseline data.
It changes the entire dynamic of veterinary care. You aren't just showing up to appointments passively hoping the vet finds nothing wrong. You are walking in armed with data.
You become a partner in their care.
Exactly. You bring your knowledge of their exercise tolerance, your monthly rib check observations, and your organized records. It elevates a basic checkup into a highly targeted, collaborative medical investigation.
Because the veterinarian is combining your incredibly detailed, subjective, day-to-day observations with their objective scientific testing. Those two halves combined catch significantly more than either piece could alone.
Which brings us to the core truth of this entire deep dive. There is rarely a single heroic, cinematic moment that saves your dog's life.
No, it doesn't usually work like that.
A long, vibrant lifespan isn't forged in a dramatic emergency surgery. It is built quietly in the unglamorous shadows of daily life. It is the boring consistency of daily toothbrushing. It is the routine of running your hands over their coat. It is the yearly blood work and the tedious logging of medication dates. That quiet, boring maintenance is actually the most profound act of love you can offer them.
It is the architectural foundation of longevity.
Before we close out, I know you were thinking about how these principles stretch beyond our pets.
I was, yeah. If we connect this back to ourselves, we have just spent this entire deep dive analyzing how gradual, subtle changes in our dogs are nearly impossible for the human eye to catch without a structured system of baseline tracking.
Right.
But this raises an important question. What if we apply this exact same framework to our own human lives?
Oh, that is fascinating. Turn the diagnostic scan inward.
Exactly. How many gradual shifts in our own physical health, our creeping resting heart rates, our escalating baseline of daily stress, or even the slow emotional drift in our personal relationships go completely unnoticed?
That is a tough pill to swallow.
We suffer from that exact same day-to-day familiarity blindness when we look in the mirror. We think we haven't changed simply because we see ourselves every day. But perhaps we too need to establish better objective baselines in our own lives so we don't wake up one day and realize the system has been quietly failing from the inside out the entire time.